I'm April, and this is a client's horse, Dakota, and I'm going to show you some yoga stretches that I developed that I like. If you see this little dip before the withers, you have a lack of muscling right here, so you don't have free use of the front end. If you come down and you look and you see the horses that won't actually square up in the front end, they always standing with one foot ahead of the other foot, you have something that's uncomfortable up here. If you come back to here, you'll see a little bit of raised backbone right here. So it means this back muscle here is shorter and in spasm, bringing these vertebrae together. The spasmy muscle shortens, grabs the pelvic and tilts it and doesn't allow freedom of the hind end. So then you have something that's uncomfortable up here, and that gives you the horse that doesn't want to square up in the hind end. So if you look at your horse, and they're always standing out there with one foot ahead of the other in the front end or the hind end, then you have issues higher up. If you have high lows in your front end, it usually starts up here as well. Now we're going to go into some basic yoga stretches that your horse should be able to do. You should be able to come back all the way to the stifle. Your goal is going to be all the way back here. So practice this with your horse every day until they can reach all the way back here. They can only reach this far. You know they're really tight down where C6 and C7 are, down in the shoulder. If they do a lot of head tilting this way, all the way, then they're really tight in the atlas and axis. So do that on both sides. One side goes way farther than the other side, and you have something deep in C7 in the first rib. So you're aiming for all the way back down here. You just go as far as they can and hold. So have them hold that stretch as long as they can. Now we're going to go into freeing up the C6, C7, scapula, withers, and first ribs. Okay, so we showed you that if they have one foot in front of the other and they choose to always stand like that, you have issues in the front end. Let's do the carrot stretch. This is the next one I'm going to show you help stretch the ribs and the shoulder scapula wither area. So pick your leg up, just a couple little circle stretches in, stretches all this area in the ribs, and have a handler when you're doing this. You just want them to stand on this leg and not put weight on this leg. I'm just holding by the pastern off the ground. She's just got all her weight on this leg, pushing this shoulder up, dropping this shoulder out. And if you look all the way up by the withers, you'll see how low her shoulder is. When she can comfortably stand like this, no spasms in here, not pulling on you, then you're ready to cross the leg. All the weight should be on this primary leg. This leg should come over and just stand. This opens the scapula to the wither. You should be able to keep her here for a minimum of 60 seconds, and it should be comfortable to the horse. Okay, as you probably already know, the back where we sit on the horse is more of a suspension bridge. You want to be doing belly lifts, and if you're under here and you're scratching and they don't lift up to here, something in your front end is not moving freely or something in your pelvis is not moving freely. So we went through how to free up the front end. Now we're going to work on the hind end. I like to start with tail pulls, which is an area that the traction is this area, and you want to do it for a minimum of 2 minutes. You want the horse to be squaring up and pulling back against you. So you start with gentle pulling pressure until they're ready for it and they pull back against you. Remember, make sure your horse is safe to stand behind. Same angle that it comes off the croup. You want to make sure that they're squared up in the hind and that they don't have one foot more in front than the other. So I hold on to the end of the tail, and I'm just going to be kind of gently rocking her from side to side until she decides to brace and square up and spread her hind legs. If you notice, her feet are now more far apart. Big heavy sigh, and then she's ready for me to give her the traction. So remember, this sure when you let go that you come up gradually. Okay? And that is what stretches out your lower lumbar and your psoas muscles that are tight and in spasm. Now we're going to go into freeing up the pelvic and the butt tucks that I like to do. Now remember, only if your horse is safe to stand behind. The area that I like, there's different butt tucks for different reasons. These put this area in spasm. That's not what I want to do on this mare. I want to get her to, teach her to roll her hind end under, which is what she's going to need to collect, and free up the lower back area. So it's about 7 inches out from the top of the tail. You'll find a little hard spot here. You're just going to scratch and push. And if they're moving away from you, you're going too fast. So just hold with pressure. And you're going to do this until you can roll her up almost to the withers. So you're going to ask for a little and hold. I like to count to 10. Ask for a little more and hold. And you're going to keep asking. And as you'll notice, her lower back is starting to raise and her rear ribs are starting to raise. When you're doing this, make sure you keep her spine straight to the withers. If they're dipping down on one side, you're going to be pushing a little harder on that side. Because you want to make sure that you're doing it with the whole spine and ribs straight. What you're looking for is all of these ribs lifting all the way up. Can you see that? Good girl. So when they're doing all their front leg stretches, and you've done the tail pulls and the butt tucks, your last exercise is your belly lifts. And you want to bring them up and hold. I'm holding with pressure, and I'm going to do the same series of 5, where I count for 10 seconds, ask for a little bit more, and hold with pressure. Ask for a little bit more. So what you're doing is the rear ribs need to raise and expand before these ribs can raise and expand. There's no reason for a horse's top line to drop. And this is an isometric where you go and hold. If you're going to engage the hind end, barrel racing, dressage, anything, these ribs need to come up for the hind end to collect and engage. This back needs to come up to support you so the front end and the hind end can move freely. So that's a big difference for a 16-year-old horse. When you get these ribs to lift and hold and stay, and you've done your front legs, you should be able to get them to expand into the withers. That's the last step. So she's opening and expanding in the here now. So I'm holding with about 5 pounds of pressure. So if you're in a hurry, and that's where her top line should be and stay, with or without a rider. And those are your horse yoga. If you find all this yoga interesting and you'd like to learn more, I do have a DVD available to learn how to work on your horse yourself. It's on my website. If you want to know why you should learn all this, it's because if one body part doesn't move as well as the other body parts, the horse is going to compensate. They can't move the left front, they're going to overuse the right front, maybe boa tendon or suspensory. They throw back to that diagonal, that hock, that stifle seems to get sore, and that's your end result. It started up here and it throws back to here. So if you can catch them all, do your yogas. If the horse can't do that stretch, that is where your problem area is. Do all your yogas and you'll have your horse for a really, really long time. Have fun.